Classroom in 810. Looking at two documents right here. Pulled these right from the U.S. History Regents, but just because it's from the U.S. History Regents that you normally take in 11th grade doesn't mean that it's not 8th grade appropriate, because I know you've used this. I know you've used this. I've definitely used something like this. And, you know, pretty much when we're looking at this, I think it was taken the second part of the Regents, whatever the case. But here we go. Based on these documents, what were two effects of the developments of the West on Native American Indians? So before we even get into that, if we look at the question, we're talking about Native Americans.
Impact.
Development of the West. So probably the time period we're dealing with here is
1860s, 1870s, 1880s, 1890s.
Westward expansion.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at the first source. This source we'll get to. This one, you know, with the stacks of hides here, you know, will be self-explanatory, but let's start with this one, and the pieces will start to come together. So let's look at the source. This is Chester Andrews Fee. This is Chief Joseph, the biography of a great Indian. So this was obviously written from a Native American's perspective right here. So
yes, it's the biography of Chief Joseph. If I'm not mistaken, Chief Joseph, I will fight no more forever.
I believe so.
Lays down the tomahawk. I believe that was him.
Okay.
Could be wrong. Even just a biography of a great Indian, you know, this had to have been written, you know,
Yeah.
more than 30 or 40 years ago.
Sure, because you wouldn't say Indian.
You wouldn't say Indian anymore.
You know, these were people of, you know, the United States of America or North America, land that once belonged to them. And, you know, when you're looking at the whole Indian, using the word Indian to describe a people, you know, again, we've certainly moved away from that.
Even the fact that it's a biography, it's
Yeah.
not Chief Joseph's words.
Right.
It's Chester Andrews Fee who did research into this.
Sure.
Sure, they use a lot of primary sources.
So you definitely have the corroborating of the evidence
Yep.
and supporting evidence. So, all right, so let's take a look. White men had found gold in the mountains around the land of the winding water in Oregon. They stole a great many horses from us, and we could not get them back because we were Indians. The white men told lies for each other. They drove off a great many of our cattle. Some white men branded our young cattle so they could claim them. We had no friends who would plead our causes before the law councils. It seemed to me that some of the white men in Wallowa, a valley in Oregon, were doing these things on purpose to get up a war. They knew we were not strong enough to fight them. I labored hard to avoid trouble and bloodshed. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
You know, again, we're talking about westward expansion. You know, you see the reference there of gold getting people out there.
Yep. You know, that whole, I know I do the R's of
Yeah.
4 R's of westward expansion, relocation, that they were put onto reservations.
Is the second one.
Then it was repossession. Once gold was found on those reservations, we repossessed the land where the term Indian giver comes from.
Right. And then there's the revenge.
And then the revenge factor, the Indian Wars. Because of all these terrible things, you know, stealing cattle, stealing horses, branding cattle, knowing that the Native Americans weren't as strong, you know, we're taking advantage of them.
Again, picking a fight, pretty
Yep.
much. Why are you picking
We're
a fight?
bold.
Yeah.
We're picking a fight we know we can win.
Yeah. Why? Because we have an organized military that's
Yeah.
going to come in there.
We're
If
not
they try to
fighting.
fight
We're not
back-
fighting a fight worth fighting, like World War II. We're fighting a fight we know we can win.
Yeah. Drove off a great many of our cattle. Some white men brand. You know, and even here, some of them, you know, who are now raising cattle, they're becoming farmers, like they were encouraged to do on reservations. Now, you know, with some of that cattle, now that's being taken from them
Yeah.
as well. Had no friends to plead our cause. All right, so now again, if you're talking about senators and congressmen, you didn't have too many people that were on their
Judges,
side. So again,
Lawyers.
who are you going to turn to? You can't turn to the government because they're not looking out for your best interests.
Nope.
So now we bring in this. Buffalo hides stacked at Dodge City, Kansas for shipment to the East, 1878. Wow.
Kansas, Great Plains natives, the Sioux, Lakota, relied on the buffalo for everything, for food, for clothing, for shelter, for even religious ceremonies, and we just came in and hunted them. Why? We wanted their skin.
Very expensive. You know, the buffalo coats as well. Those buffalo heads put in, you know, most people's homes as trophies again. You know, you had people who were shooting from the trains as well, contributing to that westward development. I know we have used the document.
When you're looking at here, I'm making a rough guess that this is probably 15 to 20 hides. This guy, so we're looking at this entire thing well over 200.
Think how high this is.
Yeah. This is a person This is a person here, horses. This is 15, 20 feet high.
Yeah,
200, 300 buffalo
Easily.
hides.
Easily.
That would feed an entire tribe of Great Plains natives for years.
And even if you're talking about taking out the meat, now you have the coats.
Yeah.
Now you have everything else.
And
that
we
can
didn't
be
take
used
out
for-
the meat.
No.
We shot them, we killed them, we skinned them, and then we left their meat and bones and tendons rotting in the sun. Native Americans would have used that all. They would have used all the meat, would have taken the bones as tools, would have taken the tendons to make roping called sinew.
Right.
It
was like a glue, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
No, they braided the tendons.
That's right, yep.
And it was stronger than tree branches, and that's what they use as roping.
And then the bladders, of course, we
Ladders,
water
brains.
bags that were used for
Yeah,
tools
you name
when
it.
you're looking at the horns
Everything
and
that
bones.
could be used was used.
So let's go back to what we started with, this question here. Based on these documents, what were two effects of the development of the West on Native American Indians? Well, since we just talked about that, their way of life is changing.
Lost their culture,
Lost the culture,
lost their land, lost their lives.
lost the resources as well, the major resource.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that they were forced onto reservations as well, because they didn't want them roaming around, and when it came to roaming around, they were nomadic, they were often hunting the buffalo for all those resources. Other effects, if we get from here, all right, we could see that when they found gold, they were pushed off their land. They stole resources from them, such as horses, cattle.
Went to
anything
war.
else? And went to war. Anything else?
There's
we-
another great quote from Native American. I forget who said it. But it said, when the white man came, our inevitability we would either be no more, or we would be not us. So either we're going to die, all the Native Americans are going to die, or we're not going to be who we are anymore because our culture will change, and it does. The Carlisle Indian Industrial School, as we were just talking about 2 minutes ago.
And when you talk about culture changing, this was a big part of their culture. This is a big part of their
If you
resources.
took away my food, clothing, and shelter,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find a new way to live.
And when you're talking about how they wanted them to live, again, information outside of these documents, you bring up these schools. They wanted them to be on. They wanted to be farmers on reservations, not roaming around. They wanted them to be more like white men.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else we want to add with this?
Be good.
Cool. Thank you for watching.